We'll get going. Media all set? Okay, great. Thanks. So good afternoon. Welcome. We are participating in our what is now a bi-monthly media briefing, just to give you all updates on a number of things that we're working on here in city government. Today, I have with me our Deputy Mayor Sharon Owens, our Deputy Police Chief Mark Russin, and our Interim Water Commissioner Robert Brandt. Thank you all for joining us, and you'll be hearing from some of them in a little while. So we'll go through the agenda. It's a pretty heavy agenda. We've got a lot of updates. As we always do, we'll start with the health update that we received from the County Health Department. We want to talk about flood preparation in light of Debbie and the warnings that we're seeing here. We'll go over some public safety updates. You'll hear from Deputy Mayor Owens and Deputy Chief Russin on that front. We're going to give drinking water update. Give a quick update on our recycling cart rollout, some upcoming open houses for our community grid vision plan, just a brief update on swim lessons and lifeguard training, talk about our Syracuse Hometown Heroes program, and then as always, we'll open it up for questions. So we'll move through it pretty swiftly here. So we'll start with health. A few things to keep in mind. Number one, it's hard to believe we're already just about a month away from getting back to school. And so with going back to school, we want to encourage families to make sure their children have all the necessary immunizations. That can be the difference between your child being able to attend school or not. So make sure that you're getting all the up-to-date immunizations. Reach out to your primary care provider to do that. And let's make sure that our children are ready to go for school, but also that they enjoy the rest of summer, because it's not over yet. COVID-19 is once again on the rise. We've seen this now in recent years. Around this time, the numbers start going up again, and that's what we're seeing here. So just want to remind folks to keep your COVID vaccine up to date as well. We're told that we can expect a new COVID vaccine out probably next month in September, and so oftentimes folks will pair that with their flu vaccine. And so again, just want people to be mindful of that, both in taking the necessary precautions, given the numbers are rising, as well as again, keeping the vaccine on their radar. So that's the latest we have on COVID. Finally, want to talk about mosquitoes and West Nile virus and Eastern equine encephalitis virus. Both have been detected by the county health department, and the county's addressing both through spraying at Cicero Swamp. They're doing that this week. So just want to remind folks to protect yourselves against mosquitoes. Make sure that your bug spray has DEET in it. You can have permethrin treated clothing to help as well. And you can also do some environmental mitigation around your house, remove tall grass, standing water, things that attract mosquitoes and ticks as well. So that's what the county health department had as far as health updates. So thank you to Dr. Anderson and her team for regularly providing us with that information. Next, I mentioned Tropical Storm Debbie is working its way up the coast, and we are keeping close track of the associated warnings and the risk of flooding. Typically, the first thing that we do when we are made aware of a risk of flooding is our DPW Sewers Division will get out and clear our most vulnerable catch basins, our storm drains, where flooding is at the highest risk. So we started that process yesterday. That's taking place today as well. We'll have crews on standby tomorrow, depending on what we see with the weather. So we're doing everything we can to prepare. And folks that have a storm drain or catch basin near their house, if you can help us to clean it out, the more the merrier. We'll gladly accept the help, but hoping we won't need it. All right, I'm going to provide the CompStat report overview and then turn it over to Deputy Mayor and the Deputy Chief to talk about some specific issues around public safety. So looking at the weekly CompStat report, I want to remind folks this is information that's on our website all the time. You go on syr.gov, type CompStat into the search bar, and you can get all of the weekly reports. So what does this week show? It shows basically what we've been seeing for quite a while now. Overall violent crime is down, which is a good thing. It's down 13% compared to the same time last year, and down 12% compared to the 5-year average. That's good. If you look at the individual statistics, the only one that is up slightly is homicides. We're at 15 now compared to 14 at the same time last year, and the 5-year average of 14.6. Always too many, but again, sadly, fairly average for where we are. I do want to note a couple of things relative to the homicides. Number one, that of the 15 homicides that we've seen in the city, 14 have been solved. Just another reminder of how exceptional our investigators are at the police department. And so I want to thank them for their hard work to keep our close rate well above the national average. I also want to note that we are now, this year, for the first time, including vehicular homicides in these numbers. So 2 of these 15 homicides are actually vehicular homicides, which would not have been included in previous years, are included now. Just some additional context as you digest the numbers. I'm going to dive a little deeper in the next slide into violent crime and specifically look at gun crime. Before I do that, just call out some of the trends we're seeing on property crime. Again, as has been consistent in recent months, it is up 22.9%, nearly 23% year over year, and 37.1% compared to the 5-year average. We know that that's largely being driven by stolen vehicles and larcenies as well, both of which we're working really hard on. And just maybe a glimmer of hope. I'd mentioned, I think in our last briefing, that we were starting to see maybe some trend lines improve there. I think I can say that that is in fact the case. So in early June, stolen vehicles were up 60%. That number has that's compared to the same time last year. So went from 60% to about 59%. Still a huge problem, but the trend lines do appear to be improving. So I want to thank the police department and all of our partners in helping to address that. Clearly, that's still what's driving the overall crime numbers. So just to go to the next slide and just dive a little bit deeper into gun crime, because again, it is trending in the right direction. So you can see all major categories of gun and firearms crime are down. And I want to specifically point out shootings with injuries or deaths are down 30% this year. So that's a significant improvement, one that we're going to continue to work on. So hopefully everyone has a better sense of where we are with public safety. Still lots of work to be done, but lots of good work being done on behalf of the police department and our many partners, including Mayor's Office to Reduce Gun Violence. One of the areas of public safety that I didn't cover in that report, but the Deputy Mayor and Deputy Chief are going to cover, is around challenges that we have, both quality of life challenges and public safety challenges around people struggling with addiction, with substance use, with mental health issues, with homelessness. And we know that those challenges are disproportionately concentrated in a few different areas. First, on a note, I want to note that they're disproportionately concentrated in the city of Syracuse. Folks, because of the services that we offer here in the city, oftentimes folks that are dealing with those issues throughout the region end up here in our city because we are where the resources are. But even within the city, there are specific areas where we have high concentrations. Of course, some in the news recently are the rescue mission, but I cannot tell you how much effort and resources and innovation we are putting into dealing with these issues, which extend far beyond the reach of law enforcement and, frankly, far beyond the reach of the city. These are societal issues and are by every level of government, but we are on the front line and we're doing a lot. And so without further ado, I'm going to introduce Deputy Mayor Sharon Owens and Deputy Police Chief Mark Russell to share more about what we're working on.
Thank you. The mayor, of course, summed that up really well. Deputy Chief and I have been working probably for 3 years now to really take multi-pronged approaches to this issue we're having in the city. I'm going to talk about some of the social services related approaches we've been making. He's going to talk about some of the law enforcement and social service relationships we've been working on. So through the New York State Attorney General's office, Syracuse, Onondaga County as well, but Syracuse was the recipient of funding opioid settlement money, and we were the recipient of it. We issued an RFP and are in the contracting process for 4 subrecipients for $1.1 million. These recipients are the Rescue Mission Connection to Care and Treatment Services. This is around drug treatment and outreach efforts by that organization to hold individual and support group related services. Helio Health Crisis Intervention Team. These are the folks that are on the ground, reacting and intervening and proactively going out to identify individuals who are struggling with mental health, addiction, and homelessness. Justice Innovation Inc. Organization on the west side, around that West Rescue Mission area, will be doing the same work. We are really putting more boots on the ground. And then we're also subcontracting with Onondaga County's Health Department. They already have a mobile unit that goes out to provide assistance for people suffering from substance issues. One thing that we were finding that they submitted to us in the RFP was that there are also medical needs in real time, particularly around sores and that type of thing. And so we're funding them to provide an RN to include with those mobile teams to provide medical care to people on site during those outreach efforts. This is not the end of our commitment to this. We are in line for more money. We are collaborating with Onondaga County for how they are initiating the use of their funding as well. So this work is going to continue with those outreach teams. I will say to the public, if you ever see someone out on the street, they are struggling, call 911 or call 211. 911 or 211, and one of many things will happen. That call will be triaged. Deputy Chief is going to talk about this, and this is all through Mark's work, very innovative policing work. And they will triage that call to determine whether or not there is an imminent threat or there is a need for mental health or substance abuse trained professionals to come to the site. So with that, Mark. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Appreciate your time today. As the Deputy Mayor mentioned, we've been working on alternative responses to individuals in a behavioral crisis for approximately 3 years. Very happy to be working with the Deputy Mayor and the Mayor because a lot of this has to be dynamic. We've always tried to be trauma informed in the way that we approach these issues. We try to create a holistic, broad, wide sweeping net to try to fix some of these problems. The police department does have a major role in this. A lot of that is what I'm finding is in terms of sharing data, sharing names, connecting with community-based service providers. That's very helpful on our side. There's a couple of programs that have made significant strides in that time, specifically in the last month or two. So one of them kind of cutely named our Friendly Faces program. It's a program that we funded last year. We hired through the county and our current county partnership, hired some folks where we actually make referrals. If we see someone based in the community that is in the throes of regular behavioral crises, we make referrals over to this county-based team. The county-based team then finds out what services they can provide for this person. And a lot of times you'll see the same pattern over and over again. It's assess, de-escalate, intervene, and then ultimately, what is the follow-up? How can we do follow-up and connect with more services for these individuals? At some point, that there might have to be a law enforcement intervention. I tried to create every program, and the way that we focus on this is police intervention comes at the last case, last resort, and that's the way this program has been designed. To date, we've had about 20 people in and out of the program at this point. I'm seeing a lot of positive experiences coming from that, and we'll see what the data shows in the next couple of months. So that's one program. The PD's working with the county and our ambulatory service providers, 911, to have social workers, crisis counselors actually embedded with some of our ambulatory responders. This program is hopefully a major step in having a co-response. This is something that we're always constantly striving for. It's a big program. When the 911 system was created, it was really created to pull 3 levers: police, fire, EMS. And really what I think we're hoping to do is pull a 4th lever for people who are in behavioral crisis to connect resources immediately upon the 911 call that the Deputy Mayor just talked about. How do we do the intervention at that point? We're not there yet. I think we're making big steps. This is one of those major steps. I really want to thank the folks that are working in those areas at the county, the 911 center, and then also our partners with the ambulatory services. So that's a pilot program that we're hoping to go here in the near future. The police department can, maybe 2 years ago started to fund specific mobile crisis teams through Liberty Resources. That budget line was about $200,000. We've increased that now as we constantly are striving to be dynamic about this issue. We have increased that now to approximately $500,000 to increase our mobile crisis responses, and then also have a dedicated liaison with the police department. We're not there yet, but that's something that we have budgeted for this year. We also, within the last month, just rewrote a grant that we had for crisis intervention training. It was a federal grant. And what we found is that we can have improvements for training our instructors, but also training our CIT certified officers, and then also having our own co-response, where we would have 2 officers in a car with a crisis counselor that could go and handle these 911 calls when they came in. So some of these calls would be verbal domestics. It's one of our top calls for service in the city of Syracuse. And if we can have officers go with a crisis counselor where there's a verbal domestic going on, it's not necessarily a law enforcement function. That would be very beneficial for the police department. Under the new patrol schedule that we have, it was negotiated under Mayor Walsh and the PBA. I think we're able to dedicate more resources to specific areas at specific times. It allows us to be more dynamic. I use that word regularly now because we try to plan for weeks, not years, as we move forward. And I think the last thing, we've been in countless meetings. I've been in countless meetings with the mayor and the deputy mayor, with business owners, people in the downtown area, but really across all of the city, not only for educational purposes about the programs, but to inform them on what we're working on. One of the things that the police department sometimes isn't the best at is marketing. And this is one of those areas. This is one of those times where I think marketing is helpful. That this is a problem. This is something that we are working on day in and day out. I feel as though we have weekly, if not daily meetings on these issues, and being dynamic and having these conversations to really move things in the right direction, in my opinion. Tons of work still to be done, but there are areas of improvement. So this is a high priority for the police department, and I know the city's administration as well. Thank you.
Thank you. So Deputy Mayor Owens and Deputy Chief Rustin will be available for specific questions, follow-up questions at the end. Again, it is a very complicated, very dynamic situation, but oftentimes I'll hear from constituents, or I may see social media postings questioning what we're doing. Do we see what everyone else sees? And the answer is absolutely. We live in this community. We work in this community. We see the folks struggling on the same corners that you do. And we are investing in unprecedented number of resources into trying to address what is, again, a problem, systemic challenge and crisis that extends far beyond the boundaries of the city of Syracuse. But we're committed to it. And I just want to reiterate, for folks that are out there, when you see somebody, especially if you see them and they appear to be under the influence of struggling, oftentimes we know with opioids, fentanyl, you'll see people slumping over. They may be standing on a corner and you're worried that they're going to fall into the road. Call 911. It's 911. The longer lasting health related issues associated with some of these folks. So there's a lot there. So we just did a deep dive on mental health, behavioral health, substance use, homelessness. We're going to do another deep dive here for a really important topic, which is drinking water. We take a lot of pride in providing healthy, quality, safe drinking water to our constituents. Commissioner Brandt has done a great job with his team and continuing to be a great steward of the system. And we invest a lot of money in protecting the watershed and protecting our drinking water every year. That said, we do encounter issues from time to time, and we feel it's really important to be transparent and open when those issues arise. And so we want to make you aware of 2 recent issues, both of which we will be sending out mailers on to every city resident. And so we wanted to give everyone a heads up as to what they're going to be receiving in the mail. There are 2 violations. Start with the first one. The first one is related to our ultraviolet or UV treatment system. It's Specifically, this violation took place at our UV treatment system at Woodland Reservoir. So a couple things before I really get into the weeds with what happened. I want to be crystal clear. Your drinking water is safe. That the notice that you receive in the mail will say that. I'm going to say it today. What we're doing is sharing information, both because we are required to, but because we think it's important that people understand what we're doing to keep your drinking water safe. But the drinking water is safe. The notice that you will be similar to ones that some folks may be used to, that we have, that we call notices. So one of the water quality challenges that we have is that when the weather gets wild and the wind gets churning out at Skaneateles Lake, which is our pristine water source, unfiltered water source, when the wind gets churning, it churns up the bottom sediment in the lake, and that sediment can get into the intake. Now we treat the water. None of that sediment ultimately makes it into your drinking water, but it does because that sediment does get churned up. The county and state health departments require that we put out temporary notices. That's not what you're going to be receiving coming is what you might be used to seeing. This is a separate but related notice. Okay, so back to what it is. So our UV treatment, which was installed, our primary treatment is chlorination. That's what allows us to deliver clean drinking water. In more recent years, we added on top of the chlorination this UV treatment, and it's specifically intended to eliminate a potential threat, a microorganism called Sorry, I said this. I've said this about 100 times in the past week. Let me just get back to my notes here. A cryptosporidium. Thank you. Cryptosporidium is a microorganism that the UV treatment works to eliminate. We have never found cryptosporidium in our water supply. We didn't during this event, but what happened is there was a period of time, about a week, where our UV system was not fully operational. To go a little bit more into the details of why that happened. So the UV system is essentially a series of UV lights that treat the water. Some of those lights went out. Typically, it's a relatively easy fix. We have to drain water where the UV treatment is happening to fix the lights. This was a pretty unique situation where our primary way in which we drain water out of Woodland Reservoir is down into Hiawatha Lake in Upper Onondaga Park. For those of you that are familiar with that park, we're currently repairing the wall at the lake, which has required us to drain the lake significantly, and we don't have the ability to put new water in. So what would have happened very quickly, it took us a lot longer than we otherwise would have to drain that water. So during that period of time, that the water that was coming through the system was not being properly treated by the UV lights. Again, at no point did those, we are constantly testing those water samples. At no point did those water samples produce any evidence of cryptosporidium or any other contaminant. But because of that period of time in which the UV system wasn't operating in its full capacity, we are required to send out a notice. So hopefully that wasn't too much detail. We can go into more if you have questions afterwards. Commissioner Brandt will be here to help answer questions as well. But I do want to talk about the second notice that I mentioned. Really coincidentally, within about a week of this, we are going to be sending out another notice relative to lead in drinking water. So for folks that may not be aware, we'll start with the source. When the water that's in Skaneateles Lake and that flows into the city of Syracuse, it is lead-free. It does not have any lead in it. But because of the age of many of the homes in our city, oftentimes you will have lead service lines that basically take your water from the main into your house. And in some within the homes, there can also be lead fixtures. That's where the risk exists. So up until last year, the EPA would require us to test our water for lead once every 3 years. Beginning last year, they raised the bar, and we are now required to test for lead every 6 months. And so in our most recent test, and we're required to test at least 100 100 homes. During that test, 27 homes, the water that was sampled exceeded the EPA standard, which is 15 parts per billion. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about what that means. So the tests that are administered are self-administered. So that means we have volunteers that will test their water. While we certainly appreciate the fact that they're willing to provide that service for us, because it is self-administered and on a volunteer basis, it does create the potential for inconsistencies in testing, but it also is, again, a really important service. So just some examples of where you might have varying lead counts. So we proactively treat our water with something called orthophosphate. I had that one up there. And orthophosphate essentially goes in and reduces the potential for corrosion of the lead pipes. So by limiting corrosion, you're limiting the leaching of lead into the water. So we treat water with orthophosphate all of the time. But there are certain times when that treatment is less effective. So think about when you might go on vacation for a week and you come back. The water's been sitting in the pipes for a while, and you turn on the faucet and you see the water might be discolored, it might be brown. In those cases where the water is inconsistently running, there is a higher chance that you might have a higher lead volume. If you take the water out of your backyard spigot, which is more exposed to weather and the heat, you have a more likely instance. So those are just all of the examples. But the reality is, again, because of those lead service lines and those fixtures, there is always the threat for those properties that they will have higher levels of lead. And in this case, 27 of those 104 properties that we tested did have a higher level. So the EPA appropriately requires us to notify all water customers when that happens. So again, we immediately notified those 27 customers of the higher rate. But we will be sending out another mailer separate from the Peridium mailer, notifying them that this happened. Again, everyone's drinking water is safe. Those that, if you have lead service lines or lead fixtures, you should be aware of the potential risk. And there are certain things that you can do to mitigate that risk in addition to what we do through treatment. Again, that's running your cold water for longer periods of time before you use it. It's important to note that we have for many years replaced lead service lines for properties, and we have a lot of new federal resources to do a lot more lead service line replacement. So we're going to be doing that, more of that than ever in the coming months and years ahead. That's the best way to mitigate the threat, is to eliminate it. And so we're going to be doing that. But in the meantime, I think what we can expect, given the increased frequency in testing from 3 years to 6 months, and what we are expecting to be a lower threshold that the EPA is going to implement before the end of this year, that we're going to see more of this. So the reason we wanted to communicate this is so people understand when they get those notices, they understand why they're getting them, and that they understand what the risks are, what the resources are, but that ultimately the water that they are getting in their faucets is clean. We are still blessed to have one of the most pristine bodies of water in Skaneateles Lake, delivering water to us every day. I mentioned we invest nearly $1 million a year in watershed protection. We have a lot of great partners in the community that assist us there, but it doesn't mean that there aren't risks. There always are, and I want to make sure everyone knows that we are doing everything in our power and everything we've always done and more to mitigate those risks, but we want to be able to ensure that folks are aware of them and that we are transparent in how we share that information. So again, I gave you a lot there. Happy to do follow-up questions once we get through the rest of the presentation, but I can't think of many things more important than ensuring that our constituents have safe, clean drinking water. All right, we'll run through the final updates pretty quick. Recycling cart rollout. So I want to thank the Common Council for continuing to work with us on our trash and recycling conversion. The recycling carts have been ordered. We expect to roll them out throughout the city this fall. We are currently aiming for October. Some things are going to be happening as we lead up to that rollout that are important for people to be aware of and that we'll be sharing more information on. We are optimizing our trash and recycling routes. So the routes that we use for trash and recycling pickup have been around for a very long time, decades. And so with the technology that we have, we've been able to track our our routes and optimize them, which results in a new routing system that we'll be implementing as part of that recycling. And that will be both for trash and recycling. Because of change in routes, the anticipated increase in recycling, we are also going to be moving towards biweekly pickup. And because of that route optimization, it is going to result in some properties that are going to have a change in day of their collection. So having learned from our trash cart implementation, we know that a little bit of change can be very disruptive and unnerving to folks. There's going to be more of that change coming. Ultimately, we think it's all to the better, both in terms of the health and safety of our workers, the cleanliness of our city, but there are going to be some adjustments, and we are going to be, again, sending out mailers, doing a lot of communication leading up to that to make sure everybody's ready for the completion of our rollout with our new recycling carts. Okay, community grid vision plan. So it's no secret at this point that the 81 project is well underway. Glad to see recently that the remaining federal litigation associated with the 81 project is gone, something we always anticipated would be the case, as evidenced by the project moving forward. With that work, we want to continue to keep folks focused on not only the project that's happening right now, but what happens after the project. That's where our community grid vision plan comes in. So we've got a number of open houses. You can see the dates. I won't go through them all throughout this month, and we would encourage folks to come out to a session near you to familiarize yourself with the plan and to make sure that you're providing input. It's a dynamic, fluid plan. We want it to evolve and change to meet the needs of our community, but it's a once-in-a-generation opportunity, and it doesn't stop at the 81 infrastructure project. There's a lot more that we can and will do to maximize the opportunity and to maximize the benefit to city residents and the local community. Switching over to swimming. So we've had a really good season of swimming with all of our outdoor pools open this summer. Want to thank all of our lifeguards and everyone else, all of our staff that's helped us to keep our pools open on what has been an extremely hot summer. The pools are going to be open for a little while longer through the middle to late part of the month of August. Our challenge is a lot of our lifeguards are college students, so and high school students, and with students going back to school, that usually means the end of swimming season outdoors. Good news is we have indoor pools, 2 of them to be exact. Southwest Community Center and the Valley down at Clary School. Those pools are going to be opening up in early September. So folks that are interested in swimming lessons, we're going to begin offering them at our indoor pools, and also lifeguard training. Again, we know that come next spring, we're going to be putting out the call again for lifeguards. Rather than getting the training at the last minute, we encourage folks to get it now and be ready for the spring, or even some opportunities that may come around over the winter. Finally, just a feel-good project that continues to move forward, our Syracuse Hometown Heroes banners. If you've driven up or down James Street recently or around Kirk Park, you will see the banners have begun to go up. The banners will continue to go up through the rest of this week and next week. In all, we will be honoring 150 veterans as part of the first year of this program, and those banners will stay up through Veterans Day. There are a lot of folks to thank. I want to thank our Department of Public Works street lighting electricians that are out there in the bucket trucks getting the banners up. I want to thank the Syracuse Parks Conservancy, which has played a critical role, as well as the Dunbar American Legion and the Syracuse University Institute of Veterans and Military Families. Of course, when the banners go up, people take notice, and then they want to participate, which is great. The deadline for this year has passed, so we are at 150 for now. We are going to reopen the process next year as we put the banners back up around Memorial Day, and so that process will open back up, and you can get on the website now. Make sure you are notified when you can fill out an application for a new banner. The website is SyracuseHometownHeroes.com. So I want to thank everyone involved in supporting the program, and importantly, our veterans, both past and present, that dedicated their lives to protecting our country and our freedom. With that, again, I know I covered a lot of ground. We'll open it up to questions.
When will the water water notices, and you have those written already?
Good question, Jeremy. So yes, we have notices, I believe. Do we have hard copies here, folks? So Stoll in the back has hard copies for the media that's here. We also have them posted on our website. Stoll, where can folks find it? And I'll repeat it for the microphones. Okay, so if you go to our website, syr.gov/water, or you can just go in the search bar and type in water notices. You'll see our notices there. Again, you'll have both the Peridium, the UV notice, and the lead notice. The UV notice is, I think, going in the mail today, correct? And the lead notice, we think, will be within the week.
Yeah. Is there any other action required?
Right. So, Rob, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think in terms of the UV system, it is fully operational now, and as long as that's the case, we anticipate remaining in compliance there. And with lead, again, that's just something that's going to happen every 6 months, and we'll share that information as it comes available. Rob, did I miss anything there? Good. So, and again, Rob, you can chime in. We do have the ability to increase orthophosphate. It's a bit of a balancing act because it does impact water quality, specifically wastewater quality, which is another issue. But we do feel like we do believe that we are applying the appropriate amount to mitigate the risk. Good. Anything else? I think, again, for city residents that are nearby storm drains or catch basins, we appreciate folks cleaning them out. Again, we have crews that are going out doing that throughout the city. If you're near bodies of water, obviously be mindful of that. We have bodies of water within the city that can be prone to flood, specifically Onondaga Creek, Furnace Brook, Harbor Brook. We monitor all of those and others. Meadowbrook is another one. Again, we have staff on call to address those issues. It is worth noting that we are in the process of undertaking some significant projects that are going to help mitigate some of those risks in the future. We are just beginning a project down in Cold Brook in the valley, where we're going to be doing some dredging and thereby mitigating the threat of flooding in Cold Brook to our valley residents, our South Valley residents. Later this year, we're going to be undertaking a similar dredging project in Furnace Brook and Elmwood Park, which has experienced flooding. So, again, there are a lot of things that we're doing, both in the short term and the long term. But in the short term, for this specific storm, keep your eye on the weather and keep your eye on the water. Yeah. Yeah, as I mentioned, we have a high concentration of individuals on many different fronts within the city, and because the rescue mission is our largest shelter and provides many of those services, we have the highest concentration of those individuals around the rescue mission. One of the challenges is that not only are we aware of that, but the predators that prey on those vulnerable populations know that as well. And so the activity that we're seeing down there, it isn't just people that are down on their luck. The rescue mission has beds available every night for people to sleep. They have meals available for their residents on a daily basis. But there are times when people are not availing themselves of those services, and there are others that are preying on those individuals. So the police department is faced with a really challenging task of addressing the law enforcement and criminal aspects of what's happening down there. And it is absolutely there. And our arrests reflect that. We've arrested a lot of people down there, and many of the same people down there. But we're trying to balance that with meeting and addressing the human needs, the human service needs. And again, that extends far beyond city resources. The majority of human service resources flow through the county. So we are in regular contact with our colleagues at the county to make sure those resources are going into the right places. And as part of that, it's also making sure that the agencies that are providing those services are being held accountable and doing what they need to do. We're in regular contact with the rescue mission. We've encouraged them in a way that they're comfortable to make more of their space available for folks, especially their outdoor green space, so folks aren't in the street. But we understand that they are trying to protect the safety of their residents, and so whether it's the police department, the rescue mission, sometimes it's challenging to differentiate between who's down there for the right reasons and the wrong reasons. It is what I describe as a wicked problem. We have tried many different things and continue to, but we do think that we've started to make some progress. Again, we want to strike that right balance. We're not going to tolerate open air drug dealing. We are not going to tolerate people preying on these individuals, but we are going to try to get these individuals help, because that's really what they do. Nothing else.
On the Syracuse University, Comstock Avenue, Ostrom Avenue, Dorm,
Yeah.
A couple words that weigh in, the council's going to make a decision at some point.
Yeah.
Where are you as mayor? Those, especially those two related proposals, demolition proposal.
Yeah, so I have the privilege of being able to look at it a little bit more holistically than the Landmark Preservation Board, the Planning Commission, and the council. They're really looking. The question before them now is the historic status of the property. I'm a big proponent of historic preservation. When you look at the investments that have been made in the city and that have driven the growth and resurgence in the city, much of that has been driven by adaptive reuse of historic properties. So I'm a big proponent of it. That being said, I don't think that preservation is always the appropriate action. And I think that, again, where I have the ability to look more broadly, for me, what goes in its place is relevant. So if the university came to me, and they did come to us and talk about their plans and say, we want to tear down this old fraternity house to put in a parking lot because we need more parking. Absolutely not. That's not a good use of that property. That's not what they're proposing. What they're proposing is a dorm, and the construction of that dorm supports their housing strategy, and ultimately, we believe, our housing strategy. So I'm generally comfortable with the plans. We are continuing to work with them on the designs. However, I think what has happened is that because of the actions of the Landmark Preservation Board and the Planning Commission and the anticipated actions of the Common Council, it has resulted in Syracuse University reevaluating the project. And if they can figure out a way to incorporate that property into the design of the dorm project, or if they can figure out a way to preserve it and still accomplish that dorm project, that's a win. That would be a great outcome. Again, for me, I did believe that preservation of that property was critical. But again, if this process leads to that, it still allows the university to do what they need to do. That would be a win for everyone. Anything else? Okay. Well, good luck with the weather, and have a good weekend. We'll see you soon. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, team. Somebody missed a call up here.